Musicians' Viewpoints. This podcast is by and for local musicians in all localities. I'm your host, Kevin Ronco. Welcome to Musicians' Viewpoints. And today we have special guests, Brian and Colin of the Colin Trio. And I'm really pleased to have them on here. It's a real honor. And we had a nice talk. They were willing to answer my questions. And we just had fun hanging out and talking a little bit. And I did have the privilege of playing in a Portland band with them about 10 years ago called Black Things. And so I do kind of miss that, but time rolls on. They're doing their thing. I'm doing mine. So it was nice to catch up with them and talk a little bit. Enjoy. Okay. Hey, this is Musicians' Viewpoints, and today I have great friends of mine, Brian and Colin of Taken by the Sky, and also the Colin Trio. And I got to see them recently. So I'll jump right in and talk about seeing Taken by the Sky. I got to see them in a beautiful theater in Salem recently. I was just blown away by it. Both of you, you're like the McVees in real life. It was really cool. So tell me about it. What was that like?
Yeah, it was a beautiful, really beautiful spot to play. Just a really nice big stage, and the crew there were really nice and super accommodating for us. It was a lot of fun to be able to wander around the balconies and the whole outside area and everything before the show, and see all the artwork and all the ornate kind of carvings in the wood and the seats. And it was really really well maintained venue. Super fun.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. The green room situation was oriented around a theater, so there was lots of cosmetic stations downstairs, like many mirrors with all the lights. You can imagine big casts getting ready for shows. There's only 6 of us, but that was kind of fun to have all that space. And it was interesting energy from the crowd because it was a seated theater show. So sometimes we play dance floor kind of situations, or outdoor concerts where people are standing and dancing, and then other times you play a seated theater, and so it just it just feels different. The sound was great.
It
was strange.
Yeah, I was going to mention that the crowd is really into it. Yeah.
But it was weird seeing everybody just seated there. And we were used to people up and dancing and stuff. But they got into it, and it was fun. And you could see little pockets of people who were just wiggling out of their chairs, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah. We were just, everyone around us were just really into it, and standing up and dancing, and people just love all that music, and you guys just nailed it. It was really like a Fleetwood Mac experience. So.
Cool.
But it's pretty special when you get to play somebody's favorite song, and you just see them light up. You know that they've probably been waiting all evening for one or two specific songs, and when their song comes up, you'll see somebody really light up and get super excited, and that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, you did some, and that the girl doing Stevie Nicks, that was pretty something. I thought she
Jessa, yeah, she's very talented.
Oh yeah, she's incredible. She I remember first hearing her do the Stevie Nicks voice and just being blown away on how spot on it is. Because that's not her normal singing voice. I mean, she's singing to sound like Stevie Nicks, and it's pretty remarkable on how accurate it is.
And of course, Colin, you do a great Christine McVie too. Really impressed.
Oh, thank you.
Of course, you're a great keyboardist, and so
thank you. It's fun. She, as I learned the music, she was a bit of a kind of a boogie style piano player. So it was just fun to kind of learn something different. She plays in a different way than I play, but then you learn to play her parts, and so you learn something new, which is always fun. Wow. Moment of growth.
Yeah, definitely. I always think of music as it was a puzzle. What is my puzzle this
Mm-hmm.
week? What am I trying to figure out?
Yeah,
And
and
Brian,
it's sort of like one of the biggest bands we play in too. There's lots of moving parts, and it's definitely like keeps you on your toes for me because I'm always singing like some kind of 4-part, harmony with everybody and playing keys and cueing the rhythm section, so it's like an interesting, like, firing on all cylinders place for me, but also like relaxing and leaning into it and enjoying it. It's definitely a good, like, I don't know, it's a good skill to practice.
yeah, I could tell
There's a lot of
you,
members.
yeah, a lot of memorizing. I could tell you were enjoying it.
Yeah.
It really came across.
Cool.
Oh, and Brian, that solo you did on the chain, that was really cool. You came out front and really hammed it up.
Well, you gotta give the people what they want. Everybody knows that little bass feature is coming up, and they're all anticipating it. And so you just gotta. I like to ham it up, and I usually like to play a lot of solos and stuff, and goof around when I play. But John McVie doesn't really do much of that. So that's the one time that I get to step forward and really, and be a little silly and get the crowd into it.
Definitely work. It was fun. The other question I wanted to ask, I saw that you guys went to a famous studio recently. You did a recording.
Yeah,
Colin Trio.
with the trio, we're working on our newest album, and we have a producer named Patrick that we really love to work with, and he now lives in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And so, as a kind of pilgrimage / work, experience, we fly down to Muscle Shoals, and we basically put our head down and work 7 days in a row, and don't really do anything other than that, and try to get the majority of an album recorded.
Yes, so we did that in 2021 for the first time, right after Patrick had moved there. And then we decided we wanted to do it again for this new record. And so we went for the second time just a couple weeks ago. And what's so neat about Muscle Shoals is there's a lot of recording studios in a little bit of town, right? So there's a small town with lots of studios, and the camaraderie between the engineers and the producers is the thing that kind of connects everybody together. So if you're looking for a particular sound that you don't necessarily have in your studio, you call your buddy at the other studio and say, hey, we're going to come over and record timpanis or whatever it is. And then it was just neat because we recorded at Outgo South most of everything, but then we got to go to Cypress Moon, which used to be Muscle Shoals Sound. And so there's lots of history there, and we went there just to record timpanis, which was amazing. So we got to tour the place and see the record of the Rolling Stones being there recording Brown Sugar, and like seeing the sort of cafeteria where all these people would have like taken a break and eaten lunch over the years. And it's pretty amazing. And so that was really cool. And then we ended up going to the Nut House, which was another studio, Jimmy Nutt, to use the grand piano. So it's just neat to kind of rub elbows with people in town and experience different studios.
So. And the Jimmy Nutt studio, what is it, Nut House?
Yeah,
was the most modern, newest, fanciest of the studios, and it was really neat. I don't think I've ever tracked in that nice of a recording studio. And he's got Grammys on the wall. And Alison Krauss had just recorded there the day that we got in. So seeing that was really neat. And then the total change of Cypress Moon, which looks like exactly the way it looked in the 70s.
Yeah, it's kind of nasty. Yeah. I mean, it's like, epic, of course, because of all of the humans that have made magic there. But you go in there and you're like, oh yeah, this place could probably use a facelift.
in a shot.
Yeah, totally.
But they're still working studio. They're still working every day with great artists and everything. It's just that, yeah, you're stepping into history, like literally.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but I mean, like Bob Dylan recorded there, and Levon Helm and John Prine, and like, I mean, all these amazing humans. So, yay!
And now you guys are taking off.
At least timpani.
Yeah, at least timpani's, right?
Yeah. I saw the picture. Yeah. By the way, your drummer, great drummer. I'm really, really
yeah,
impressed.
Tio's
Very
good.
professional. Has a good stage presence.
Oh yeah, we've worked with him for a couple of years now. We met him a few years long before we actually started playing in a band with him. We were starting to get hired for session work, and every time we'd show up, he would be the drummer, and we got along with him personally. He's a really nice guy, super easy to work with, super professional. Always got, he's always prepared. And when the time came where we needed a new drummer, it was just a natural fit. Like I don't even think we invited him into the band. He just said, "I'm your drummer now."
Oh, that's cool.
And so now that we work with so many bands and recording projects, it's just nice to have like the three of us that are so comfortable playing together. So it's just easy to work with people you've worked with before. You know how they work, and you know that they're going to show up on time and that they're going to have their charts written, and we can just get through things without wasting a bunch of time.
Cool. Yeah, what else was I going to ask? So now I go into my standard questions that I ask everybody. So we'll go back because you guys are obviously going big time, but tell me about the first bands you guys played in. What was that like?
You can go. No, you want me to go?
Oh, okay. Well, the first band I played in, I mean, the first band I played in was like me and a guitar. And then it sort of morphed into me and Brian. And then it never really moved on from there. I mean, we just got more members and like changed.
Evolved a bit.
Yeah,
Well, no,
we just evolved over the years.
you were talking the other day about your band with your girlfriends before you could play
Well, but that
instruments.
never actually. So when I was in sixth grade, we had the idea of a band, and we were called the Serial Killers. But of course, cereal spelled like the breakfast cereal, right? And our
You're
first
kidding
album
me.
was going to be called Dead Cornflakes, right? And so we had the whole like idea. I was going to be the piano player, and one of my friends was going to be the drummer, the other one was going to be the guitar player. But we never actually made any music. We just talked about it. It's like the chatter of sleepover. You know what I mean? Like when you're 11, and you're really into music. But that never became of anything. But so when I started playing, I was in high school and started gigging, like, I don't know, I think I was like 16 or so, and just played solo for a while. And then we became the duo. And then eventually we became the trio. But Brian has more early band experience than I do.
Yeah, my first real band that I gigged out with, and we played for, from the end of high school all the way through college, was called Jive. And we were like this weird mix of the Grateful Dead and Frank Zappa.
Okay.
We were all like jazz students, so we like to do things that were complicated for the sake of being complicated. So that was our big kind of Frank Zappa thing. But then our Grateful Dead influence was we loved improv, and we had a like a no rules improv strategy where if we got into a jam section of a song, we did not hold to the key, to the time signature, to anything. If we wanted to all of a sudden turn it into a punk rock song on the fly, we could do that, and we would follow whoever was pushing lead, and that was a lot of fun. Not necessarily the most popular band. I think we were more confusing.
You should tell them about your rule when you guys would learn covers.
Oh, and we would play a lot of covers, but we had this rule: when we learned covers, we decided we're going to play a song. You weren't allowed to listen to the original version of it. You weren't allowed to like chart it or anything like that. We would have to learn the song purely from our memory of listening to the song in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we would kind of pick it out that way. So we were typically very wrong in the key or in the changes or in the lyrics, and we kind of almost like rewrote the song in our own way, which was probably confusing to the crowd, but but it made from some really interesting arrangements of the songs that we would cover. And I think we came up with some really cool arrangements, although as I got older and played in a lot more bands, and I would go back and remember these, and I'd have to relearn these songs, the right way. It was really hard because I was so used to the creative way that Jive would play the song. So, and the best example of that was, I play occasionally in a Talking Heads tribute band, and of course we play Psycho Killer, but my band Jive used to play Psycho Killer as well, but we'd play it completely wrong. And so it was really like retraining my brain to like, no, don't play it the way Jive plays it. Play it the way that the Talking Heads play it. But no, it was super fun, and the really great group of musicians. And I definitely miss playing in that band, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I hear that. That's cool. What's the next question? My list. So, I asked this one, and people kind of laugh at it because basically any band you play in, you hopefully really enjoy. But what's one that you really enjoyed? Maybe you already answered this, but what's another one?
Well, you do enjoy most of the bands. I think that different bands give you something different. I think that actually the band that we played in with you, the Black Things,
Yeah,
was a really, really influential
really
band
fun, yeah,
for
that
both
was.
of us.
Yeah.
That was the first kind of like hard rock band that
Yep.
either of us had really played in. And so it was definitely like taken out of the wheelhouse, and it kind of changed a lot of how we approach playing, in a lot of the way that Colin plays keys. And so that was a super influential band.
Yeah, actually, it was kind of like a Jimi Hendrix almost, the way his guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, like playing around, and he had these really neat riffs, and the covers that we did were of songs I would have never thought to cover, or songs that I didn't know. He just came from a different background, but it was super influential, and it really, it made me want to play the bass with a pick, which I don't normally play with a pick, but I love the way the bass sounds with a pick. And it made me a lot more comfortable with switching back and forth between playing with my fingers and digging in rock and roll style.
Yeah, and I would say that one of the things that I enjoyed the most, I love playing with the trio because of course that's my favorite because that's original music. But outside of that, we have a 90s hip hop and R&B kind of like project, and that is like the most fun I've ever had on stage by far.
Yeah, that is about the most fun.
I love 90s hip hop. That's like what I grew up listening to, like just bringing it to life with a live band and like creating these like fun medleys where we're like sewing all these songs together, and I get to sing and I get to rap, and I'm like, it's just wow, like it's
that sounds like
it
a
is
trip.
joy for sure. It's so fun.
Oh, and the people that come to those shows lose their minds.
Yeah, like it's super dance. Like
oh,
it's
wow.
20 years ago. It's amazing.
And we dress up in all the garb. I wear a full tracksuit with gold chains and a fedora, and we're jumping around. And and I love when my favorite parts in that band is when we're doing a medley, and I turn around, I grab a saxophone, and we do Brass Monkey. And like it just blows the crowd's mind. And also we do a lot of gender bending with that band, where there's a lot of chauvinistic lyrics in 90s R&B and hip hop, and so we'll have Colin sing all the guy parts, and we'll have the guys sing all the girl parts, just to kind of flip it on its head. And then Colin is a surprisingly good rapper. And she has this kind of amazing memory of being able to memorize lyrics. So we can go and play songs from like Ludacris, and she can remember the entire song and just spit those super fast lyrics and get them all right every time. And it's kind of remarkable to do that. And watch how surprised people are that she's doing it.
That's so cool.
Those are fun, and we're excited to get, that's definitely a band that we had to put on hold during COVID, and we're excited to get that back into swing.
Cool. Yeah, that makes me happy to hear that some of the stuff that had to be shut down is starting back up. That's That's what music to my ears, you might say. So now what was your worst gig mirror? And I'm hoping it's not something I was part of, but that's the question.
I don't know. You might have been on the gig where they asked me to run sound for the ukuleles. And I was like, you mean you got 13 ukuleles and I'm supposed to mic all of those? But no, that was not a nightmare gig. It's hard to say, nightmare gigs. I guess there was one with Jive where we were playing and this is actually, I think this is more funny. It was kind of a nightmare when it happened, but it makes for kind of a funny story. But we were playing in this long bar area, where it's long and skinny. And you can kind of see things going down in the crowd while you're playing. Sometimes, things are about to go sideways. And there was this guy who had a big fur coat on, but it was a fake fur coat, I found out later. And some really drunken girl who got all PETA and decided to dump her drink on this guy's fur coat.
Oh, no.
And I know. And the guy is livid because somebody just dumped a drink, turns around, sees that it was a girl, and he's ready to punch somebody. He sees that it's a girl, doesn't punch the girl, but sees her boyfriend and knocks him out. And then it turns into this big fight that works like a wave all the way from the back of the bar all the way to the front where we're playing, and they just fall all over us.
Okay, I'm gonna take over because I was in the crowd.
Oh yeah, because she was in the crowd.
I felt the wave, right? The fight was happening towards the back of the bar, and because it's long and skinny, and the band is playing at the front, and they're right next to the front door, and so everybody started to push forward, like almost like when you're in like mosh pit, or a big crowd, you get pushed and smushed, and so people start running out the front door because people ended up falling on the band, right? There's like blood on the like pedal boards, and like mic stands are falling over, and we're outside, and they're like trying to break it up and all this stuff, and like it
was yeah. And I remember because I had to play the next day, and I was like, oh my god, there's blood spots on my pedal board.
But the best part,
is
that we were out with friends. I was there watching the Jive show, and we got in the car to go home, and we had gone there with a couple other people, and the one friend's sister was visiting with her husband, and he's from Sweden. And it was his first time to the States. And we were so worried that maybe he had a bad experience, because we were like, oh yeah, we took you to a show and then it was a fight and we had to evacuate, and he's like,
and his shirt's all ripped,
his shirt's
got
ripped,
blood
he's
on
got
it.
blood on him, like, and he's like quiet for a second. We're like, are you gonna be okay, Friedrich? And he's like, I went to America, I got an American bar fight. Like, he was like really excited about it. Like,
he's like, I'm gonna frame this shirt. I'm gonna frame this shirt and put it on my wall. I was in an American bar fight.
It's like we gave him an experience. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Huh. So that's.
But we survived it.
You survived. Yeah.
Yeah, we survived it. That was that neighborhood where there was a grouping of bars was a pretty rough spot. And we look back at it now and we're like, yeah, you'd play till 2 a.m. there, and more than not, you'd see a fight by the end of the night outside. And so I'm glad that that's not our normal place to play anymore.
I've played a few of those.
Oh yeah.
Years, yeah. But anyway, it's not about me. It's about you guys. So the next question: when did you pick up an instrument, and how old were you?
I was 5, and I really wanted to play the piano. They had a piano in my house that my dad had bought from my mom as an anniversary present, I think when I was a baby. And she would just find me in there, like reaching up and trying to play it. And then she asked me one day if I wanted to take lessons, and I was like, uh-huh. And then I can just remember like taking lessons, and at the studio, it was like a studio of teachers, like had a studio, I operated the studio together, and then they were all bringing all their students together to do their annual recital. And so they had asked me, I had just started taking lessons, I don't know, a few months before, and they said, okay, well, the recital's coming up, pick out a song from your book to play at the recital, and we'll work on it. And I was like, no, I'm going to play my own song. And they were like, what? Like, you're 5 and you're brand new. And I was like, I know, I wrote a song and I'm going to play it. So they totally let me play my own song for my very first recital. It was like this big, beautiful sanctuary, and I remember the they always printed a program for the recitals, and it would have the student's name on the left, the name of the piece in the middle, and then the composer on the right. And so like mine was the only one was like Colin Hogan, whatever the name of the song was, and then on the other side, Colin Hogan.
Of course.
And that's how it all started. And I knew from the time I was little that I was like, yep, I'm gonna write music and I'm gonna share it with the world. Here we go.
Wow. What a great story. I love that.
How about you?
And I guess
Yeah.
I started playing, I guess when I was about 11 or so. But I always knew I was going to play because my older sister was always in band and she was very good. And even my parents thought it was weird because I always wanted to go to her band concerts, and I was always really excited about going to like her middle school band concerts and her high school band concerts. And I knew as soon as I got into middle school, I knew immediately like I was going to be in band and I was going to play an instrument. And so I chose the saxophone and played that all the way into college. But at the same parallel to that, I played guitar because, what 11-year-old kid doesn't play guitar?
Well, I didn't play guitar until I was 15.
Oh yeah, you waited all the way
Took me
until
a
you're
few extra
15.
years. But I started singing when I was, I don't know, 10 or 11, something like that.
Yeah.
It's a slow progression to get to the multi-instrument life now.
Yeah, I didn't even switch to bass until like college.
Yep. Yeah, because you played sax and guitar, and then you played percussion for a bit, and then one day you were like, I was meant to be a bass player.
I wanted to play bass.
You never looked back.
Well, it was difficult too because at the time I was playing in jive, and our bass player was remarkably good, and he is still just super, super good. Can play anything by ear. Is one of the most creative bass players that I've ever heard, and he still does. He still plays in bands, and he still like plays in theater and things like that. And so when you're standing next to that guy, you don't want to play bass because he's got it on lock, And then once I started playing in other bands, that's when I was like, oh, I want to play bass.
Yeah,
and it stuck.
Yeah, definitely worked. Yeah, great bass player. Both of you, great musicians. So as great musicians, what do you think about your local music scene right now?
It's coming back.
It's coming back.
Yeah, it's like it's interesting. Like, a lot of people, I mean, everybody had to stop during COVID, stop gigging. And so and then like, I remember last year, things kind of slowly happening. And then like, I'd be like, okay, we're playing a show, telling people about it. And like, oh, wow, it's been so long since I played a show. And that's what I would hear every time I would try to invite people out. And now it's like everybody got back on the wagon, and like it's hard to get a show now because it's so saturated. Everybody's playing, so like you got to book out like way in advance. And but it's really nice to see people playing again and people going to see music. I mean, there was like a good 6-8 months or so of people, and probably still happens, of people just looking at me in the face right after the show and just saying like, I haven't seen live music since 2019, like, thank you for saving my life, kind of a thing, like you just feel like the missing piece. And then people realizing that when they come to the show, and then sharing that gratitude just for the the platform to have and experience live music. So that was pretty powerful.
And the scene here in Portland is it's very supportive. Like you go and you see bands play, and they come and see you play. And that seems to be, and it's also like there's I don't want to say cliques, but there's definitely like groups of
circles.
There's circles of bands,
right?
And you get to know a lot of the bands in that circle, and they come to a bunch of your shows, you go to a bunch of their shows, and it's pretty supportive in that way. I would say like a lot of musicians go and see other bands play, and they're all cool about sharing bills, and they support each other, and that's really nice.
Yeah, that's what I remember about it from 10 years ago when I was working with you guys then. So that's good to see it still like that, or coming back to that.
Although I will say it's kind of hard for newer people to get into that circle, and I hear a lot of people who are like either newer to the area or kind of wanting to get out there, like having a hard time kind of getting into it. But they also, I think, sometimes don't realize that like you have to go to other people's shows. You can't just play shows and expect people to show up to your shows. You got to get out there and get to know people, and and have a presence.
That's so true, and I'm probably terrible about that. I have been the last few years, especially. So I'm trying to get back out there. I know I've been to a few shows, but guilty as charged. I went to yours because you gave me the ticket.
Oh yeah.
Yay.
I enjoyed it. But that reminded me. I was like, man, I don't do this enough. So, but no. Last night, Colleen was saying we need to go see the Jen Greg band. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So, I hear you. So next question. What do you think about musicians who play mostly benefits instead of charging a professional fee?
There's a place for everything. I thought I read these questions. I was thinking about this today. And there's a place for everything. I think that one thing about Portland in specifically is that it's pretty fair about what you make based on the effort you put into promoting the show. Almost all shows here are ticketed shows. So if nobody shows up, you don't make anything, so it really comes down to like, are you bringing people to a venue? The venue owners and the bar owners, they're hiring you not for the love of the art. They're hiring you so that you bring people to a venue. And if you are demanding a guarantee, but you're not bringing in a crowd, then that's kind of a problem. And I think there's definitely a place where people can play for free, and that's fine. And also there's a place for selling tickets. But with a market that's so saturated, it's hard to walk into a place in Portland and demand a flat fee for showing up.
Right. True.
There is different venues, in particular, the Laurel Thirst and their happy hour shows. So that is a show that, the Laurel Thirst has a really dedicated, awesome crowd that comes to see whatever Louis books because Louis booked it. And they know that Louis is not going to send them a terrible band. And so that has the built-in crowd, and you got to earn that spot,
Right.
know.
That's true.
And so that's a spot that you can play, and it's going to be a fun night. But also, like, Louis is not going to book your band unless he feels like you're going to make his regulars happy. But yeah, it's hard, in particular in Portland, because it is so completely oversaturated.
Yeah, I get that.
But yeah, it's different other places. But yeah, I mean, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's just different. It's always different, like being in the city versus being in a smaller town. Because I mean, the minute you go on the road and play a smaller town, you usually get paid a flat rate. That's just how it is. Smaller towns are like, we'll pay you this much to play for this long, and they have an establishment that people will come to. And then in the city, it's like, cool, you want to use our building? Bring the people here to drink our beer and eat our food also. So
right.
it's just like, and so it's interesting because like when you play, what I learned over the years is like in Portland, when you play a well-known venue, even if you're new to that venue, if people have heard of the venue, you're much more likely to get people to come out. If you're trying to like tell someone about a show and it's at a venue they never heard of and been to, it's harder to get people to come try a new place,
Right.
even if they know your band. So it's interesting how like, the venue really matters. I mean, not only for like vibe and location and like how far people will go based on where they live and things like that, but I don't know, it's just interesting, just different.
And it's like, and I guess it goes both ways too. Like if you're playing a venue and you're playing for peanuts and you're packing it in and people are just having a great time, and they're there to see you, that's not fair. And that venue should either be charging your cover or paying you adequately. But in the same breath, if you're playing a venue and you're not bringing anybody, you're not really like putting on a show, then they'd be losing money by paying you. You kind of have to prove your worth in order to do that. And yeah, Portland's tough. You know,
it's very hard to get paid because there's so many people that are willing to play for nothing. And there's so many bands and there's so many venues. So then your crowd gets thinned out, right? Like how many people can be at one show because there's so many shows happening at the same time. And then you get on the bill and it's usually 2 or 3 bands, which means you split, the money gets like divided between all the bands and how many people are in each band, all that. But I mean, you got to do it because you love it. First, always, but if you're talking about money, then, then yeah, it gets interesting.
And being so competitive in Portland, and you really have to work to get people excited about coming to your show or wanting to see your show or paying your cover. You got to work really hard in Portland to get that. And so it pushes you to be better at what you're doing. It pushes you to be a better musician. And we definitely make better money when we play outside of town, but playing in town and the hustle of trying to make it work in Portland makes us much better players.
And it keeps you relevant in the scene, right? I mean, you don't want to disappear from the scene that you are part of,
Yeah.
Play in town, even if it's not as lucrative, play out of town to keep growing and keep sustaining the project, It's all about balance.
Yeah.
Great answers. Yeah, I love that question because it's not really right or wrong answers, but it gives me insight as to what people are thinking.
It's hard because I get a little, like I'm on all the, musician forums and everything on Facebook, and some people get like so high on the horse about musicians playing. Don't let musicians play for free. And I just don't agree with that. I'm like, hey, sometimes you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And you got to get out in front of people. And if you're not, you think that only people who are professionals and do this for a living should have the opportunity to play concerts? I don't feel like that's true at all. I think everybody should have fun and play on stage for their friends or whoever, and so, yeah, like demanding money, just, that doesn't, just because you have a guitar and an amp doesn't mean you're any good.
Exactly.
It's right. Like, yeah.
No, I feel like the question's kind of set up to be like, what? You have to do one or the other, but yeah, that's how I worded it. But I've definitely done benefits and started projects doing benefits and then, made them professional as a result. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah. Well, we all started open mic night. I mean, we all started open mic night. If there wasn't open mic night, nothing would ever happen. That's how we found our drummer Matt was at an open mic night. We've made so many musical connections by doing that, and that is like one of the most important things going on. Got to get in front of a crowd.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where you find your voice, right? And then you know if you're connecting or not, which sometimes you don't. You need to know that as well. So what's the next question is, what did you do during the pandemic?
Woodshedded.
Okay.
We practiced a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. We were fortunate that Cheo, our drummer, and we're a small band. We're just a 3-piece, and everything was about bubbles and just if you're going to be around people, just be around certain people. And Cheo was in our bubble, and he had a rehearsal studio, and we weren't playing in any other bands. We weren't learning anybody else's music. We just practiced.
And so January of 2021 is when we went to Muscle Shoals the first time. So we basically spent most of 2020, once we decided to go record, working on all those songs. And I remember we had prepared, I think, 16 songs and then played them for the producer, and he picked his favorites. He picked 8, and then we went, in early 2021 and did that week in Muscle Shoals and made that record. And then we definitely played some. I mean, we released a live record actually in October of 2020. So we had made a live record, and it had taken us a while to get it pressed because we did vinyl, and the wait time was crazy. But anyway, it didn't get to us until like, several months into the pandemic. And so we thought, well, we'll just wait. And then it's like, well, we're just going to have to keep waiting because we don't know how long this is going to last. So then we decided to release it anyway, even though it was pandemic. So we did a virtual show. I think we were allowed to have 10 people.
Yeah,
10 people in the audience at Alberta Rose Theater. They were like, you can have 10 people, and they were all spread out in the whole thing, and then everything else was, broadcasted. So they recorded it live, and we had like the iPad with the chat and stuff like on stage. So we did like a record release in the middle of the pandemic and played for 10 people in a theater. Wow. It was hilarious.
Wow.
And then we went and recorded, and then we did have several other opportunities to like play. We did like concerts from the living room a couple times for different things, and like
there was a few concert series, like live stream concert series that featured us, and we kind of set it up in the apartment and played.
Like we made videos for things and we did recordings. Like I remember Karen Ann had us record a couple songs that she was releasing, but she would just send us the tracks and we would add our parts. We didn't actually like meet in person. I remember my college reaching out to me and asking me to make some videos because they were featuring, alumni musicians, as a way of like keeping the spirits up, when everybody was at home for those first few months.
Yep. We even did I forget what the company was, but some company hired us because they were doing a happy hour hangout.
Yep.
And so
we were their band. So
we were the
just
band
in the living room.
Yes.
At our house.
We were on Zoom, and there's a bunch of people on Zoom, like drinking a beer, hanging out together. Yeah. And we were playing for
and
them.
like putting money in the virtual tip jar, It was just like hilarious. But yeah, so we definitely played music. I mean,
nice.
Brian continued to be a bike mechanic as he is, because he works just one bike at a time and could pretty much do contactless like delivery and pickup. So your business boomed in that way, and then I switched to teaching yoga online, which was easy to do once you figure out Zoom. So we adapted, and we played lots of music along the way. So
yeah, we definitely, and it gave us an opportunity to reorganize what we were doing as the trio. Up until the pandemic, I had another band that I was playing in. Colin had a different band that I wasn't in, that she was playing in. Plus, we were doing the trio and all this stuff, and we kind of like just reorganized and said like we want the trio to be its own brand, its own thing. That we worked as playing our original music, but we work as a trio for other bands or for recording projects, and it let us kind of clear the slate and start over again, a little bit more organized, and that made a big difference, because when pandemic started to ease up, we were ready to go. We hit the ground running as soon as we were able to.
Nice. Yeah, and you guys are taking off, so that's great. What band blew your mind the first time you heard them?
Wolfmother.
Oh, they were so good.
Yeah, Wolfmother for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. What
about you? We saw Wolfmother in Norfolk, Virginia, the first time they came to the States, and they played at a place like about the size of the Roseland Theater, and it was one of the best rock and roll shows ever. For me, it was hands down. It was Bella Fleck and the Flecktones.
Oh, okay.
My sister, like I said, is a musician, and she's like, and I had never heard of this band at all, even though the bass player went to like the high school down the street from me. And I had never heard of it. My sister's like, hey, there's this jazz band that you got to go see. It's jazz banjo. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Why would there be jazz banjo? This is going to be awful. And my sister has kind of eclectic taste in music sometimes. And I was like, well, fine, let's go. Let's see this. And I went, and my jaw was absolutely on the ground from the minute they started playing until they were done. I've never seen anything like that. And I've since seen Bella Fleck in the Flecktones at least, close to a dozen times. And they're still like one of my favorite bands. I mean, it's musical pyrotechnics, and one of the greatest technical players out there. And so being able to see that is incredible.
Yeah, I would agree. I saw Bella Fleck with Stanley Clarke and Jean-Luc Ponty.
Oh, that'd be great. I love
Yeah.
Stanley Clarke. He's, another great bass player. Yeah, he certainly picks them because he also did a tour with Edgar Meyer, who is another just phenomenal bass player. I think that album with just the two of them, just upright bass and banjo was great. And he did an album with Chick Corea, which was amazing. But yeah, and then did you watch the movie? What's it called? The one where Bella Fleck goes to Africa,
I've not
and
seen that.
oh, you got to see that. And he goes to try to find the origins of the banjo, and he plays with all these amazing tribal African musicians, and he just fits right in. It's kind of incredible what he can do with that instrument.
That's fascinating.
But yeah, big Bela Fleck fan.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And what was the other band? Wolf Mother? I'm gonna look them up. I don't know about them.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
you'll love them. They're from Australia, and they're just riff driven, good old rock and roll. Their self-titled album is every song on that album is a banger. It's so good.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll check that out. How do you see the future of local live music?
I just hope it keeps going, I hope people, keep coming to see shows and pay the cover charge, support, the entertainment that they're getting. I don't know. That's hard to say. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think like I was saying earlier about what happened during pandemic and there not being any shows and just seeing people's reactions to the first few shows after they hadn't seen one in so long, it seems like it's going to continue because people seem to really value the in-person energy exchange of being at a show. I mean, from the musician's point of view, of course, it's like that's a huge part of playing. I mean, I'm sure not everyone that plays music likes to perform, but a lot of us do. And we really thrive on the energy exchange, the feeling of playing music to people and for people and with people. And then, the way that people are receiving the music, the way that you're delivering it, and then sort of the conversation back and forth throughout the show, and then the interaction of the people on stage and how all of that influences what it sounds like and what it feels like and what the experience is, I think is a unique platform. And so as much as we can be with each other virtually these days, I think that nothing really replaces, being in a room where someone's creating music.
Absolutely.
So I mean, it's interesting to have something that, technology advances and makes other things possible, but I don't think anything really takes the place of, that experience. So it seems like as we progress on, we're still going to have this live music, venue situation as a part of our human need,
I think so. Yeah, there's just humans need other humans and in person. I would agree with that. Yeah. So I think we kind of answered the previous question earlier, which is how do you go about getting gigs? I think you kind of already talked about that one. But did you have any more insight on that?
I do the booking for our projects, and I think about, like, I really like to string a few dates together. I think there's value in playing a few shows in a row. You kind of build momentum. And so if I can, I try to get a couple nights in a row. We don't do like super long tours right now, but if we do a few nights in a few different places, it can be really great. And so like, I like to look at other bands that are playing that are sort of in our vibe, and to get ideas about other venues, like where, like if I'm thinking about a city I've never played in, and I look up like bands that play there or bands that I've heard of to see if they've toured there, that kind of thing, like reference. And, just reaching out and saying like, hey, this is who we are and I'm hoping to play. And, we sound like this, which is like always like the worst question. What kind of music do you play? So I just try to send videos and, you know, recordings and let them figure out what we sound like by watching it or listening to it. And just like, I don't know. I mean, because right now, like, it's not like we have like a booking agent or a record label or anything. So just being a human, just being like, because I know it's just a human on the other end. Like, hey, you know, we're this. Like, do you think we would be a good fit? Like, we'd love to come play at your place, you know, kind of thing. Like, and just like learning over the years, like to be really honest about it and just approaching people like, well, the worst they could do is say no, you know.
That's right. Yep.
And it's exhausting, and I think that it would be amazing to have somebody else do it for us, but you know, for right now, it's like this is how it is, and just trying to kind of, you know, keep it in the routine so that like if you haven't heard back from somebody in a while, you sort of circle back and just be like, hey, just circling back, you know, like, what do you think, kind of a thing. And I don't know, it's an interesting like way of being vulnerable, you know, because you're sort of reaching out and being like, hey, I'm me and I'm also marketing me, you know. What do you think about me, you know? And so it's
Yeah.
I think I've gotten better at, you know, I don't know, just being grounded and asking for what I want, and you know, trying to just be like fearless. And I believe in what we do, and you know, it comes from a place of authenticity. And so I feel, you know, better and better about being like, here you go. You want to come play? What do you think? You know, so
Cool.
that was a long way of answering your question.
Oh,
And sometimes it does feel like venues do invest in you, you know, like they'll book you and give you a shot, knowing that like, well, nobody knows who you are in this town or whatever, but we're going to give you a shot and see what you look like, and then they'll help you build a crowd. You know, they'll say, oh, once they've seen you play, they're like, oh, these guys are really good. Let's pair them with a really popular band so more people can see them, and then they can build their audience in this area, and keep having you back. And we've seen that too, where the venue kind of believes in you and they help you to build a better crowd.
Cool. Great answers. Yeah, I'm just realizing I'm stepping into I guess I have to do some booking, which I haven't had to do a lot of over time, but so I'm experiencing some of what you're talking about now, and it's actually kind of fun. I'm realizing I'm actually not bad at it.
Nice.
You know, so
good for you. Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely rejection, but it's oh well. Just keep. But then you have your successes, and oh wow, this club, I think we got a bite here, and looks like we're playing at this place. And so that's fun.
And it feels really good when you finally get to book a place that you've always wanted to play. You know, that, you know, we played Mississippi Studios for our last album release. And I just remember how good it felt when we finally got the thumbs up from the venue that we were actually booked. You know?
Yeah,
like this is happening.
It's actually happening, yeah.
Yep.
And I'm really excited right now. We're booked at the Ruins, and I've always in Hood River, and I've always wanted to play there.
Yep.
Oh,
and
cool.
so I'm really happy with that. And with the tribute band, it's a lot easier and less gratifying because yes, it's just a booking agency. They just say like, hey, this, you know, we're working on a contract with this place on this day. Do you want it? You know, so
but that doesn't count as a tribute band.
That doesn't count because you're performing like it's theater. It's not really like the same as doing art.
Yeah.
You know, it's more like you separate art from craft. That's the craft of being a good player, but it's not necessarily art.
Yeah, but I think Fleetwood Mac is a hard act to do. So I mean, I tip my hat to that. I was thinking, I don't know if I'd want to take on that challenge. So I think that's pretty impressive.
It came pretty smooth. You know, there's good players. When you got good players that are dedicated to the project, and they, you know, rehearsals are really minimal for that band because everybody practices at home. And when you come to a rehearsal, it's expected that you've done your homework and that it's just making sure it all sounds good together.
Right.
And that goes a long way because, you don't come to rehearsal to learn the songs, you know.
Yeah, that's similar with my projects. It's like, no, we need to study, and then we come to rehearsal because it's fun playing together, and
For sure.
Yep. So so did you guys have anything else you wanted to add or say, or?
Um, I mean, I guess I would just say, I mean, my motto in life is never be afraid to ask for what you want. And I think that, with our last question about like, how do you go about getting gigs? It's like there could be such an internal dialogue of fear, or doubt before you even ask for a show, before you even reach out and really like take that first step. And so I think that it's just good to remember that, like, don't be afraid to ask for what you want. I mean, what's the worst that could happen,
Right.
Only you really know what you're after. You know your dream and you know your vision and how you see it going, but you got to put it out there for it to, come to life. So
Cool.
I don't know, just go for it. I would say whatever it is that you do.
And I guess if we're going for mottos here, mantras or whatever,
Yeah.
For me, it's good things will happen when you let them happen. An opportunity, a lot of people are scared when an opportunity comes to them. Somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, man, do you want to play in this band?" And you look at the players and you feel like they're all so much better than you, and you get scared, get your own head, and you don't do that. I think that's where you're losing the opportunities. And if somebody comes up with some crazy idea, like, yeah, let's do this thing. If you don't try, you'll never know. And just trying to take advantage of the great things that come to us.
Yeah.
And so I want to do all the things, and I want to let good things happen.
Yeah.
Cool. It's like the energy that you put out comes back to you. I
For
think
sure.
that's
definitely
so powerful.
Yeah, if you don't try something with your heart, then you'll never know if it sounds good. Like if you're arranging or writing a song and somebody has an idea and it doesn't immediately click with you, you still want to try that idea with everything you've got in your heart to know whether or not it's going to work, and you owe it to your fellow musicians to do that, opposed to just deciding, oh, that's a bad idea, I'm not even gonna really give it a try. It's like you'll be surprised that it sounds different when you try.
Right. On that note, I think maybe we want to wrap up the interview, and I just want to say that consider you guys friends, and I'm going to try to come see you more than I have, which has not been enough. So
we'll always bug you when we're in town.
Cool.
We got to find some good venues in Salem too.
Corvallis,
or Corvallis, right? I'm sorry, Corvallis.
Oh yeah,
that's right, because we saw you came in Salem. But yeah, we got to find some good venues over there that are Colin Trio sized.
Yeah, there are a couple. There's Old World Deli, which they've fixed up, and that would work for you guys. And also Bombs Away. I think we played there together one time.
Yeah, we
played
did.
there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I haven't played there for a long time now either. So, but I'm just starting to get going myself. So, just starting to realize, well, I had COVID, and I'm like, well, I guess maybe that means I need to start sticking my toe in the water out there,
Yeah.
So, anyway, appreciate you guys, and value your friendship, and
of course,
we'll stay in touch.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
This will be up probably within a week when I have time to put it all together.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Good questions.
Yeah, well, great answers. I love doing this. I'm hearing every single interview has just been like, wow, I can't believe how insightful everyone is. So
cool.
Cool. Well, happy trails.
Yeah,
Yep.
me too.
All right. Have a good night.
Yep, you too.
Yeah, that was great. So really enjoyed talking to Brian and Colin.
Check them out. They're the Colin Trio. They have a new album called Where's Your Fire? It's out now. Dropped July 21st. And here is a song by the Colin Trio. I think you're really going to like it. I know I love it. So, love it. Here it is.
Drown